This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. Very pleased to be speaking with Reid Davenport and Colleen Cassingham about life after. How are you both doing today?
Good. How about yourself, Abe?
Good. I was excited at the chance to see this film. My wife works as an end of life consultant and has done many things about medical aid in dying. So I feel like I was coming in with some knowledge already, but I appreciated the complexity of the investigation that you have here.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I'm curious who you think is sort of the target audience for this film and what knowledge you expect them to have coming in, or if this is sort of like a crash course without anything that they should know beforehand.
I think our target audience is the typical documentary audience, typical independent documentary audience, which are progressives. And I think progressives think they know this issue, that they think this issue is cut and dry, and what we wanted to present were questions around this topic and encourage a deeper consideration for what and who is at stake.
I like to think that our target audience is really people like me. As someone who has leftist politics and is deeply committed to bodily autonomy, I thought I knew where I stood on the issue of assisted dying before I made this film. I was 100% for it. And it was Reid's own perspective that cracked open my own biases and assumptions around it. And so we hope that audience members have that similar trajectory. Because I ended the process of making the film, really acutely aware of the way that disabled people are treated as second class citizens in this country and abroad. And you can't consider notions of choice in a vacuum. So that's what we hope folks take away.
Well, I appreciate it. I think that a lot of documentaries you watch and you come away with a specific viewpoint that's sort of like where the film is guiding you. And I like that this film, you're supposed to sort of live in the uncertainty and say that it is more complicated. And that as you do with your interview subjects, for some people, they have absolutely one perspective and some people the other. I'm curious what the process was of finding people who were willing to speak about this and whether that itself was a challenge. People didn't want to necessarily be part of this conversation.
We really wanted to talk to people who were directly affected by this question. We talked to one doctor on screen, and she has treated hundreds of disabled people and knows quite well the dynamic we were exploring. Um, and I think we knew that in order to make an effective intervention, we needed first-hand experiences, and that's what we gravitated for. And that's why you meet Michael Callahan and the Hicksons and Elizabeth Purvis' sisters.
Yeah, I'll just add I think that there are a handful of documentaries around this subject matter going back to, sort of the iconic How to Die in Oregon. And I don't think there's been a film yet that explores the topic from the perspective of disabled folks and the lived experience at the intersection of ableism in healthcare, in legislated poverty, and in all of these issues that are primary issues the disability community faces through the lens of those. So that was what we sort of rooted our our film in.
Colleen, you mentioned you came in with a certain idea and then it sort of emerged a little murkier. Reid, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like you knew how you felt beforehand and has that changed as a result of making this film?
A bit, but I think a little bit differently. I think I knew conceptually the arguments that the disabled community were making, and by interviewing a host of people on and off camera about this issue, it challenged me, it shaped me as it made the issue in some ways more murkier, and in other ways very simple.
You feel like there have been developments even since you finished the film that have added to this conversation, even just from a legal perspective?
I'm not sure about that, but I mean, I read about Buffet 8 or 9 years ago. We've been working on this film 4 times for 4 years. So, um, over those years, I think there, I think there haven't been different iterations, but definitely different angles that I can appreciate.
We started really the deep research on this film in 2020, which was the time the Bill C7 in Canada was sort of pushed through Parliament, and so it was over the course of our 4 years of making the film where the data and the consequences of this bill trickled in. So we were obviously closely tracking all of the developments um, through that time. There were different junctures where the bill was set to be expanded to include people with mental illness, and to be expanded to quote unquote mature minors to access MAID. And then there were also sort of counter efforts by lots of different communities, including the disability community, to halt those expansions because we were just catching up on the implications of what we did with Bill C7 by just expanding it to disabled folks. So we've seen that expansion is set to halt until 2027, which is a relief. And but yeah, so there have been ups and downs through the course of making the film.
What do you hope that people do after seeing this film? What are the next steps that someone can do if they want to learn more and become involved in whichever part of the fight they feel is the right place for them?
It's a great question. I think things are truly dire in Canada. It's very very dire. And if there's a way for um to to encourage or to shine a light on what's happening in Canada, I think that's 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 energy well spent.
I think there's a way in which certain highly skeptical viewers of this film could write it off as a very niche issue. Um, and but I think fundamentally that's absolutely wrong, and it engages the key issues of our time, not just the ones that face only the disability community, but that's that affect large swaths of society. I mean, we're talking about things like a fight for universal health care, a fight for robust resources and support services for everyone who needs them. And the disability community is on the front lines of like the violent implications of lacking those things. But we're all really frightened of the future for a lot of different reasons. And we hope that this film, a key takeaway is that, however the debate around assisted dying plays out, alongside having that debate, we have to be struggling for interlocking calls for the things that sustain us in society and that make that are responsive to the needs and aspirations of everyone in society, for everyone to live safely and healthily. And so I hope that people feel invigorated to fight for those things and over the next, especially 4 years, but beyond, because it's only going to be harder to do so, but the stakes are so high.
Obviously, great that this film is premiering at Sundance. I know, Reid, you've been there before with your first feature film. Is there something strange that feels about it being in the US rather than Canada, given some of the focus of the film?
I don't think so. I think this is for US audience. I think not to objectify Canada, but Canada is kind of the cautionary tale that we have to be vigilant, not necessarily about assisted suicide legislation, but making a society where assisted suicide legislation can be can be enacted safely.
Well, I know that, you're still, this film is about to premiere. Do you have plans for another feature sometime after this? And do you know what kind of subject you'd like to explore?
Yeah, I would like to talk about telethons, specifically Jerry Lewis's telethons. It was very bombastic and obviously ableist, so kind of making a dark humor documentary and also showing how the legacy of Jerry Lewis's telethon is alive and well, specifically in the mass media.
As you prepare to come back to Sundance, how are you feeling about the state of disability inclusion in, the film world and film festivals specifically?
I think it's improved drastically over the past 5 years. Um, a lot of it has to do with crew camp, and I think that the rest of society, we have a very long way to go.
Well, I appreciate that both of you have such a passion for, this subject and others. And I'm curious, are there other docs that you're looking to seek out at Sundance, other, things that you want to know more about that you think could be very interesting and important?
I mean, there are a lot that look great. I'm specifically excited about the Marley Batlin doc.
I'm excited about Deaf President Now and Seeds, which is also playing in our category. And then our DP's film, Amber Ferris, she directed a film that's also at Sundance called Coexistence My Ass. So we'll definitely be supporting her there too.
Well, thank you both so much for taking some time today. Wish you plenty of luck at Sundance and look forward to hearing how audiences react and seeing what comes next.
Thank you so much, Abe.
Thank you, Abe.